Hello, good afternoon. How are you doing today? I hope the week has been a great one and you are striding and pushing forward from any part of the world that you are joining. Good afternoon. I'm yours and only Opeyemi Shokunbi. And this afternoon, it's going to be an engaging session as usual. So just, sit tight and let's dig deep into the discourse for today. So let me tell you something that changed my life as an entrepreneur. And this is how I will be trying to help us break down the issue of how to identify the problem around us. The biggest businesses in the world were not started by geniuses sitting in a lab somewhere, dreaming up the next big thing. They were started by ordinary people who got frustrated by an ordinary problem. Now, just pause and think about it. Think about it. Uber. Someone couldn't get a taxi in Paris on a cold night. That frustration is now worth over $130 billion. M-Pesa. Millions of Kenyans have no bank account. And then Safaricom turned the gap into the most revolutionary mobile money platform in the world. I mean, when you just go back to the Uber episode, before Uber, and then met, Cosmopolitan Lagos, imagine how you hail your ride, how you stop the yellow cab, how you beat the price, how you dilly-dally, even if you are rushing to the hospital for an emergency, you must have that conversation. Imagine that. Or walking to the taxi park, the old man sitting relaxed, and then they are asking you all sort of question. Where are you off to? How much do you want to pay? Oh, this person does not agree. Go to the next person. Or are you talking about Paystack and Flutterwave? Setting up your business payments and receiving payment across several borders, in less than 5 minutes. In less than 5 minutes. Today, the pain point is worth over $3 billion. Or come to think about it, is it my own company, Press One Africa? One day, my founder wanted to set up a business, have an EA answering his call, have another team speaking to the quality of how they're engaging the customer. And then he looked for the solution in Nigeria, and there was nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found something to meet the need. And then we also saw that millions of African SMEs were running their businesses on personal phone numbers with zero professional communication infrastructure. No call tracking, no IVR, no analytics, no sentiment analysis, nothing. That frustration became our mission. Now, none of these founders invented a new technology. They simply saw a problem that everyone else was walking past, and we decided, I am going to fix it. That's all. So here is my question to you today. What frustration have you complained about 100 times, but never for once thought, wait, maybe I'm the one meant to solve this problem? So today, I'm going to welcome you to my LinkedIn Live. My name is Opeyemi Shokunbi, entrepreneur, tech leader, coach, and co-founder and CDO at Press One Africa. And for well over 15 years, I've been building solutions, mentoring founders, engaging, entrepreneurs, investing in ideas that started with one simple thing: a problem. And today we are starting a series, a multi-week journey that will fundamentally change how you see the world. By the time we are done, you won't just be able to spot problems. You will know how to validate them, how to size them, and how to decide which one are worth your life's energy to solve. But on today's episode, let's say episode 1, we are laying the foundation. We are answering just 3 fundamental questions. What exactly is a problem worth solving? How do you identify problems hiding in plain sight? Plain sight. How do you press in when others walk away? Now, so the first question is, what is a problem worth solving? What is a problem worth solving? Now, before I share, because I would love to make this very practical, and I'll be sharing some case studies I have seen, I've been involved in, I've solved some of them. Let's set the foundation, because most people get this, wrong from the very beginning. When I say problem, a lot of people immediately think, oh, it has to be something big. It has to be something flashy. It has to be something that will make you millions of dollars. Something cool, something trendy. Come off it. No, stop there. Let us reset our thinking right now. Now, I'll try to make the definition of a problem very simple, but please follow me and don't lose the conversation. Now, a problem worth solving is simply a gap between how things are and how things should be that causes real pain to real people. Now, it doesn't have to be sexy, doesn't have to be tech, doesn't have to be global. It just has to be real. Real. Now, somebody in your neighborhood can't get clean water consistently. That is a problem. Small businesses in your area are losing customers because they don't have a WhatsApp business strategy. That is a problem. Now, your place of worship, your church struggles to coordinate volunteers every Sunday. That is a problem. Now, parents in your community don't know where to find affordable after-school programs. Come off it, man. That is a problem. And, sometimes you'll be able to understand everybody else and entrepreneurs when you hear how they talk about these things, when you hear how they try to follow what that problem is and how to deal with it. Now, everybody will say something like, this is so frustrating. And then an entrepreneur is asking a question, who else is frustrated by this? Now, everybody else will say something like, someone should fix this. An entrepreneur, is asking, what if I fix this? Now, someone else might say, this is just how things are. That's the way they are. This is Lagos. And then an entrepreneur is asking the question or looking at things differently to say, come off it. This doesn't have to be this way. No, it can be better. And then, the most common one or popular one in organizations, in the streets, on the road, or anywhere you find yourself is, it's not my problem. It's not my problem. But an entrepreneur sits back and says, this could be my opportunity. Now, that shift from complaining to claiming is where entrepreneurship begins. Not in a business school, not Harvard Business School, Lagos Business School, not in an accelerator. Right there, in that moment where you decide, I'm not going to walk past this anymore. That's where your study or your life of entrepreneurship starts from. Now, how do you identify problems? All right. So now that you understand what a problem is, you have been able to picture what should be or what it is versus what it should be, and something that is a real pain to real, person. Then the next question is, how do I find them? How do I find this problem? And I'm going to give you 5 lenses, 5 options as to how you look out for these issues. Now, think of them as 5 different pairs of glasses. When you put each one on, you start seeing problems you were completely blind to before. All right, lens number 1. What makes me angry? What really makes me boil? The frustration lens. Now, every time you say, this is rubbish, why is this so hard? Why doesn't someone do something about this? That's a signal. Your frustration is data. You just need to start a note on your phone. Pick up your book and write it down. Every time you get frustrated by something this week, write it down. Don't judge it. Just capture it. By the end of the week, Saturday, Sunday, you will have a list of problems waiting to be solved. That's number one, the frustration lens. Number two, your observation lens. What do I notice that other people ignore? What is it that what I see is totally different from what others are saying? Some of the best entrepreneurs aren't the smartest people in the room. However, they are the most observant. They pay attention to the things everybody else normalizes. They walk through your market, your neighborhood, your office. Watch how people struggle with everyday tasks. Watch where processes break down. Watch where people waste time, money, or energy. That's where problem lives. The observation lens. Are you observant about what is happening around you? Or you just casually walk around in the market, on the road, anywhere you go? Lens number three, the expertise lens. What do I know that gives me an unfair advantage? What do I know that gives me an unfair advantage? And here is a very powerful one. You've got skills, knowledge, experience, exposures that other people don't have. Just like, the first time I was in the UK and I interacted with Oyster's card when I was, making payments for, transportation. Coming back to Nigeria, I looked at this fragmented, logistics, transportation, commuting differently just because of that one experience. So you have skills, knowledge, experience, exposures that other people don't have. That gives you the ability to see problems that are invisible to everyone else. Now, a doctor can see a problem in a community that a banker can't. A logistics expert can see supply chain inefficiencies that a software developer might miss or will never even know exist. Your expertise is your superpower. What problems can only you see because of what you know? That is the expertise lens. Lens number 4, the conversation lens. What are people complaining about? Now, let me tell you, one simple gimmick you may not understand about AI. And when people say it crawls the web and then regurgitates information, most of the things people are seeing and they are getting excited about, were written months back, years back. And the internet crawls just about 3 or 4 major databases and then gives you that information. And you are like, wow. But guess what? Some of this information were things people were complaining about. So you go to Reddit, you go to Wikipedia, you go to all sort of informational sites. This is where this information is coming from, especially when it comes to how products are suggested to people over AI and AI models. So stop scrolling past complaints on social media. Stop tuning out when your colleagues, friends, and family members vent. Their complaints are free market research. When 5 different people tell you the same frustration, that's not a coincidence. That's markets. And lens number 5 is the transfer lens. I call it the transfer lens. What works elsewhere that doesn't exist here? What works elsewhere that doesn't exist here? This is where the Chinese is pure magic. Now, this is gold for African entrepreneurs. You see a service, a product, or a business model working in another country, another city, another industry, and then you ask, why doesn't this exist where I am? Or how can I adapt this for my context? That's not copying. That's called transfer innovation. I mean, we call it copying, but it's innovation that is transferred from one location, one scenario to another place. And this is why China is great at what they are doing, and they keep competing against the best in the market. Why? They get a tool, for example, a BMW, they remove all the engine, they pieces every part of the car, look at what makes it great. They get a Volkswagen, they get a Volvo, they get all sort of things, they tear it down, and then they build theirs, combining the best of the best together. Why wouldn't they be great? And this is called transfer innovation. And some of the most successful African startups were built on exactly this principle. In fact, in some cases, it may not be direct transfer, but you mirror that service to it. For example, when Paystack started, almost every preacher does, you hear him talk about, we are building the Stripe of Africa. Why? Because then it becomes relatable. I have a playbook, not a playbook, like a quick reference, guide for you at the end of this conversation. If you stay back and you want to have it, I'll gladly share it with you. All right. So now let's make it real for you. I have about 2 use cases, but I will just give you like an extra one. And the first one, is something that is very popular when people want to start a business or solve a problem. The first thing everyone thinks about today, because of how technology has shifted, is to say, oh, I need to build an app. I watched this clip on X about 2 days or 3 days ago, and it was really, really, surreal. The experience builder, in terms of someone who has invested, who has been in the industry for decades, was speaking to a student who had a very beautiful idea. Our idea was to build what is called a peer-to-peer cloud sharing platform, to say that I'm going to have an app. If you're a girl in one dorm, another girl in another dorm, will share, our closet in terms of what we have, in terms of clothes. And if you like any one of it, you can come and loan it and use it. And then, people can use and share things like that. So she's got a beautiful idea, and she said to the person, but I don't have money to build this app. And then the person said, no, you don't need any money. Just print at the front of your door. If you want to rent my clothes, knock the door. Depending on the number of people that knocks the door, then you validate if it's going to be a real idea that people like. And that's the way we need to start thinking about things. We need to understand that MVP has shifted from you spending, tens of thousands of dollars to build a platform or a solution, and then you go to the market and you start saying, oh, do you have this problem? Do you have this? I need to find my ICP. I need to do this. I need to do that. No, we have moved away from that. All right. So case study number 1, and I'll be sharing real life case studies. The problem nobody wanted to solve. Now, about 15 years ago, I lived near a town called Ijaniki in Lagos. And right there in the middle of residential neighborhood, where family lived, where children played, where people ate and slept, there was a massive dump site. Now, I'm not talking about a small pile of refuse. I'm talking about a full-blown, sprawling waste site, the kind that breeds diseases, the kinds that contaminates groundwater, the kind that makes the air heavy with the smell of decay. This was a public health crisis, plain and simple, nothing more. Now, I had a church member, a young lady who had just, graduated from one of the leading private universities and studied public health. She had the academic training. She had the domain knowledge. She literally had the expertise lens that I just spoke about. And I saw that she couldn't see an opportunity. So I pitched it to her. I laid it all out. Here's the problem. A massive dump site in a residential area endangering public health that is just about 6 or 8 houses away from you. So you see this problem every day. You smell the air every day. You pass through the site every day. And here's the approach. Engage government agencies, your local government, whether it is Loma, an environmental NGO, apply for public health grants. And here is the funding path: government partnerships, community mobilization, donor funding from international health organizations. In fact, let me shock you. She lived about 3 houses away from the chairman of that local community development area, LCDA. And here is the impact that would happen. There will be a safer neighborhood, reduced disease, and potentially a career-defining public health project for her. I don't know if you are following me. Are you here? Are you with me? And I need you to really understand this, that almost everywhere we are, there is a problem sitting right around us. But guess what? She never saw it. She never agreed. She never took a single step. She never made a single phone call. And guess what about the dump site? It stayed there for years, contaminating, endangering, waiting for someone with the courage to act. Well, the good news is, as of today, it's no longer there. So opportunity will not wait for you forever. It might wait for you for years, but not forever. Now, here is a lesson. Now, I am not telling this story to shame anyone. Don't get me wrong. I'm not telling it because it illustrates something. I'm actually rather telling it because it illustrates something critical about problem solving that nobody talks about. Seeing a problem and solving a problem are two completely different skills, and between them sits the most underrated quality in entrepreneurship: the willingness to press in. Now, guess what? She had the qualification, she had the knowledge, I even gave her the strategy, but she didn't have the conviction that this was her problem to solve. She was waiting for it to look right, to feel ready, to be big enough. In fact, to be employed in an organization to probably one day solve that kind of problem. And while she waited, people kept breathing in contaminated air, children kept playing near hazardous wastes, and here is the truth. The problem didn't need to be sexy. It needed to be solved. End of discussion. Now, this is the second case study. You may not like this, but I will share it nonetheless because it's something that I was intrigued about and I pursued solving. The Teenage Pregnancy Initiative. Let me give you a completely different case study, same principle but different outcome. About almost 20 years ago, in my hometown, I noticed something that broke my heart. Rampant cases of teenage pregnancy, girls in their 14, 15, 16 years old dropping out of school, their futures cut short, their potential locked away before it ever had a chance to breathe. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a social worker, I'm not a government agency, so on the surface, this wasn't my problem to solve. But here is what I learned in my growing up and understanding how to help and solve problems. Not every problem needs a direct solution. Sometimes the most powerful approach is through the side door. The side door, not the front door, the side door. So what did I do? Now, during the long vacation, when these girls were most idle, most vulnerable, and most likely to make decisions that will alter their lives, I organized a summer tutorial center. Now, how did I structure it? I approached the local government, asked for permission to use a particular school, a central location popular in my hometown. And from Monday to Thursday, it was full academic tutoring in all major high school subjects. And even we went to elementary, mathematics, English, science, everything they needed to stay sharp and competitive. But guess what? Every Friday, we shifted gears. We used audiovisual resources, films, documentaries, discussion groups to teach about the real impact of teenage pregnancy. Back then, we watched a very popular film. I mean, I'm sure some of us who are old enough will relate with it, called Yellow Card. Now, many of you from this generation may not know it, all those clock it generation, you may not know it. But it's a powerful story about the consequences of unprotected sexual activity among young people. We discussed it. We let the girls talk. We let them ask questions in a safe place with people that have knowledge. We brought in role models and mentors because these girls had no one, or most times no one in their family had gone beyond that level of education that they are about to cross, which is closing out their high school education. They had their grandparents or people who are not knowledgeable around them. Why this worked? Now, I want you to pay attention to the strategy here, because this is a masterclass in indirect problem solving. Now, I didn't preach at them. I didn't go from house to house saying, oh, stop this art. Oh, this is bad. Oh, this is... No, I created engagement. The academic program was the hook. It gave parents a reason to send their daughters, their sons. It gave the girls a reason to show up. It was the front door that led to the side door. Now, I use their language, movies, stories, conversation, not lectures. Young people don't respond, to lectures. They respond to stories they can see themselves in. This story was about a young prodigy, a footballer who had a great future ahead of him, but got entangled with a young girl. They had a baby. The young girl eloped, left the baby with the boy, and then the boy had to be, putting the baby in the back and then be playing soccer. He couldn't go professional. Now, I met them where they were. Summer vacation, when they had time, when they were vulnerable, when intervention could make the biggest difference. And then guess what? I leveraged what I had, not what I lacked. I couldn't prescribe medication. I couldn't change government policy, but I could teach. I could get people to volunteer. I could rally around young people who came to work with me and then ready to solve this problem. I could organize. I could create a safe place. So that's exactly what I did. Now, one of the things that struck me most about this story or about this use case was that the following year, when I then graduated from university and didn't pursue this project, by the time I walked through the market square, I could hear women that I never knew from anywhere calling out my name, saying, Brother Ope, our children are home this summer. Are you not doing your program? So you would see that the hook, which was the academic one, pulled in everyone, both the parents and the children. It moved them away from being vulnerable to where they could add value to their life, even while they were on holiday. Now, this is a lesson. You don't always need to attack a problem head on. Sometimes the most effective solution comes through a creative, indirect approach. The side door can be more powerful than the front door. All right, so now we'll talk about how to press in, the bridge between seeing and solving. How to press in. So now you know what the problem is. You have 5 lenses to find them. You have seen 2 real life case studies, something you can relate with, something you can connect it. One where someone walked away and one where someone pressed in. So the question is, when you see a problem, how do you press in? When you see a problem, how do you press in? And I want to give you just a simple, framework. I call it the press method. I want to give you that framework and quickly speak to how it could help you to press in into any problem. So the first P in the press starts for pause. Pause and acknowledge the problem. Now, don't scroll past it. Don't normalize it. The moment you feel that friction, that irritation, stop. Write it down. Give it a name. Most people's biggest entrepreneurial idea died because they never paused long enough to capture it. We are in a fast-paced world where everything is just happening, bam, 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 and you are running. So when you are on the social media, you are reading a blog, reading an article, whatever it is, pause and acknowledge the problem. Don't normalize it. All right? The next is R. R stands for research. Research who else feels this pain. Now, your frustration alone is not enough. Talk to 8 to 10 people. Post about it on social media. Ask in the WhatsApp group if other people share the same pain. You are not just annoyed, you are sitting on a market. Last year, Q4, I needed to build a product. And then I asked myself, why should I build this product without understanding if people needed it? Then I post a survey on LinkedIn. How do you engage with your customers? What channel is preferable or most preferable for you? And guess what? The answer was clear. Before the end of this quarter, we are launching that product. So you need to understand that you must talk to people and, get their perspective, get their opinion, gather some data, do, what looks like a market research, but informal. The next is E. Evaluate your unique position. Are you the right person to solve this? You don't have to be an expert, but you need something. You need an advantage. That advantage might be knowledge, access, passion, connection, or just sheer determination. In the Janiki story, my church member had the expertise, but lacked the will. In the teenage pregnancy story, I lacked medical expertise, but had the will and the ability to organize. Both matter. All right. The next is S. Start small and scrappy. You don't need 50 million naira. You don't need $50,000. You don't need a team of 20. You don't need a perfect business plan. You need a first step. My summer tutorial center didn't start with a grant. In fact, for your information, we did not, we charged the children, I think 200 naira per month or something, but it was just to run the center, fuel the generator, get the materials I needed for the audiovisual training. That was all that was needed. It started with a room, a few chairs, and a conviction that these girls deserved better. Start with what you have. Start where you are today. And the last S is stay. Stay with it long enough to matter. Stay with it long enough to matter. Now, most people quit problem solving when the excitement fades and the grind begins. They want the glory of founder without the grit of builder. The problem that changes communities, industries, and nations are solved by people who refuse to walk away when it gets hard. Press, pause, research, evaluate, start, and stay. That's your framework. That's your first tool in this series. Write it down, screenshot it, imprint it on your brain. Let it stick, let it stay. Press, pause, research, evaluate, start, and stay. I give you another narrative. Why it seems like Africa is not progressing in a very transformational pattern. One of the things you will see is that we have shifted the idea of creation to building things like apps or things like applications or software, but we are neglecting infrastructure. We are neglecting hardware. For example, today, I cannot say in the technology space, there is an African manufacturer of what we call an access point that is used to distribute internet in homes, places, market, offices. I cannot speak of one today. That is a global player. In fact, no, a national player in Nigeria. And this is what we need. We don't need the next app. We don't need the next sexy thing. We don't need the next most fanciful thing. A company just came up recently, raising fund in the space of security, building interesting security tech platforms. And they started out, I think, targeting to raise about $10 to $12 million. Today, they've raised over $30 million because people understand that this is a pain. Security is a mess in Africa. And if someone stands up and says, I want to solve the problem, people will back you because it is a big problem. All right? I'd love to close our session today And let me close with this. Right now, somewhere in London, somewhere in Lagos, somewhere in Toronto, a business owner is losing customers because they can't manage their calls professionally. Somewhere in Accra, a young graduate is looking at a broken system, thinking someone should fix this. Somewhere in Nairobi, a mother is struggling with a problem that a clever entrepreneur could solve with maybe an app, a service, or just a well-organized community initiative. The problems are not hiding, they are screaming. The question is, are you listening? Are you listening? Are you listening? That's the question. And this is what this series is about. And over the coming weeks, we are going deep. How to validate a problem before you invest your time and money. How to size a problem to know if it's big enough to build a business around it. How to find your unique angle, the approach that only you can bring. How to turn a validated problem into a viable solution. And then the real case studies from Africa and around the world. This is what we'll be doing. We'll be trying hard to break it down to the simplest unit and form so that you can understand exactly how you get started, how you in an organization can become an entrepreneur, not waiting for all the money before you launch out. I'm going to give you an homework for you to do. So before the next week episode, here is what I want you to do. Open your notes app on your phone right now. Title it Problems I See. Between now, and next, Thursday, write down every problem you notice at work, at home, in your community, online, everywhere. Remember to use the 5 lenses: frustration, observation, expertise, conversation, and transfer. Don't judge what you write. Don't filter. Just capture it. We'll work with your lists in the future episode, and I hope that it will help you to get started on your journey of finding a problem that you can get started with to solve and to impact your generation and your community. Now, if today's session meant something to you, I'd love you to do 3 things. Share this video with someone in your network that needs to hear this. Follow me here on LinkedIn. Follow me on my YouTube channel. Follow me on TikTok. Follow me on X. Drop in the comment, what is one problem you have been walking past that you are now ready to look at differently? Drop it in the comment. Drop it there. Let's see it. Let's share it. Now remember, every problem is an invitation. Every frustration is a signal. Every gap is an opportunity. The question was never whether there are problems to solve. The question is, will you be the one to solve them? I'm your very own Opeyemi Shokunbi, and this has been episode 1 of how to find problems to solve. All right, so thank you very much. It's been Opeyemi Shokunbi, and see you next week. Bye for now.